Hello and welcome to a two-parter tonight on the Managing Madrid Podcast for our beloved patrons. I'm your host, Kiyan Sobani. Part 2 coming up later is the world-famous Real Madrid mailbag where Lucas Navarrete and we recorded that segment before the game, and now we're recording this segment after the game. So part 1 is the post-game show for what was a bloodbath where poor Levante were just not only relegated, but really in a harsh way. Poor Levante, just completely buried under the earth, and their souls just zapped out of their bodies tonight in a terrible fashion. Heartbreaking for them. But that's football. That's life. We don't have time to spend too much time on that because we got to talk about possibly Real Madrid's most potent offensive performance of the season. Look at the stats in this one. Modric, 3 assists. Jovic, an assist. Rodrigo gets his goal. Ferland Mendy gets a goal. Benzema, 1 goal, 1 assist. Obviously ties Raul on goals scored for the history of the club in some 140 games less, which is just remarkable in itself. Vinicius, hat-trick and an assist. The XG was nearly 5. There was 27 shots in this game. It was just a crazy, crazy night at the Bernabeu where Real Madrid just went Armageddon mode. So Matt and I are going to break it down, and obviously Matt is here. So Matt, my first question to you is, at what point in this game, what minute did you just put your notepad away?
I mean, you could tell this was going to be a bloodbath after like the 20th minute. I think we were already up 2-0 by then, and it was an onslaught, like nonstop. The shots kept coming. You called it out right there. 27 shots, and that doesn't sound like an exaggeration just because there was that many shots. Hat-trick for Vinny. Hat-trick of assists for Modric. I think Fede Valverde hit the crossbar or post like 3 times. You name it. I mean, there were a couple disallowed goals. So, and Rodrigo was played in, had that little chip that he went for that didn't come off. I mean, there could have been a lot more than just 6-0. So this was a bloodbath to say the least, but it was fun, and there were some standout performances and some performances. I think some bigger picture stuff we can get into, and just some talk on guys like some bit part players who maybe have made a little bit of a name for themselves here.
I think I know who you're talking about, but you and I had a discussion last night in the podcast about the fine balance, the balancing act of getting these guys rest and rotated in time for the final so that they're fresh, but also making sure they're in match rhythm. I really wish that this was the game before the Liverpool game. This would have been not that this wasn't a confidence booster game, but this really would have been the perfect thing to head into the Liverpool game with a game like this, where the confidence is really at an all-time high. Everyone's feeling themselves. Vinicius gets his hat-trick. If this was the game right before Liverpool, that would have been awesome. But, there's 2 games left, so momentum will probably naturally wane from this one. You told me off air before we started recording, because I kind of wanted to focus more on big picture stuff, although obviously we'll talk about some of the things in this game. So I'm going to pass it on to you and ask you, what is it that you wanted to prioritize from this game? Because I don't really have too much of a preference. I can take this in any direction, but I feel like maybe you have some things in mind here that you may want to lead with.
Yeah, I got a couple things, and they're kind of in-game and bigger picture stuff. So one, I think we saw today, we started with the Camavinga, Valverde, Luka Modric midfield. And that's a midfield that we've seen pay dividends against the likes of PSG, Chelsea. I don't think they featured together for City, but those 3, when I think about those 3, I feel like that's our most dynamic and physical midfield. And I just wanted to get your thought. Like, do you think this is kind of almost like the energy midfield? Like if you want a trio that's going to be able to compete physically and still have enough of a two-way presence on the ball, then these are your guys.
Yeah, I think so. Because Modric brings you I think a midfield like this needs a bit of a veteran leadership, although who am I to say that after Fede and Camavinga did a double pivot against Manchester City and closed it out together until Ceballos came in and helped them a little bit in midfield. But, Modric gives that calming presence that this midfield needs. I think Camavinga still has that trait about him that there is sometimes he can be a little bit too hyperactive, he can get himself booked. He can get himself into trouble sometimes, although he's brilliant. And I really enjoyed his performance tonight. I think having Modric there helps those two from a two-way standpoint. Also brings the progressive passing bit as well, and a lot of good defensive coverage. This gives you a really stable midfield lineup, I think, if you have those three together. It's probably going to be short-lived because I don't know how much Modric has left in the tank in his career, but for sure. This is a weird one too, though, because it's like, how much did Levante actually test us? I mean, in terms of Real Madrid's opponents go, I'd have to think about it. I don't know if this is the actual answer, but it might be. This might be the worst I've ever seen an opponent play against Real Madrid. As good as we were, they were horrible. Really, really, truly terrible in all aspects of the field. So there's just that side of it.
Worse than Mallorca, when Asensio scored the hat trick?
That was pretty bad too. That was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But this one I expected some more. I mean, like, they were going down, and I expected a little bit more. I mean, they gave Barca some problems, right? So,
yeah, I mean, and just quickly going back to the midfield trio, what I also like about it and why I prefer it over when we do the Casemiro, Camavinga, Valverde midfield is, yes, we're not in favor of Camavinga in that defensive midfield spot. But what I like about it is when he does make his forays forward, or maybe he moves out of position to press, one of Modric or Valverde recognize that and usually kind of drop into that space. So I like that rotation. I'll move on to kind of one of my other points I wanted to talk to you about.
Are you going to move off of Camavinga? Because I had a couple more things.
Go for it then.
Well, just on Camavinga, there were so many highlights in this game from start to finish. And I feel like my favorite one out of all of them somehow was a Camavinga slide tackle in the second half. I forget who was on. I mean, I'd have to look at my notes. Let me see if I have it. It doesn't say who it was just in the 64th minute. I have that part of it down. But it was he's just so good. And it kind of started from, there was one sequence in the 13th minute where he just brushes off Morales off the ball with so much ease and comfort, but just conviction and strength. His tackling, and he had one later in the first half where he's counter pressing, he wins it, and it almost like in one motion he tackles it and does a turn with the ball and starts running at the goal. He's just I feel like he's gonna be like just a terrifying presence to deal with if you're opponent for years to come. He's kind of like a video game cheat code right now.
I'm loving the way he's ending the season. Like, he is playing lights out right now. He's playing so well every single game. I just feel like, and there will be, I mean, he's a young player, so we know there will be ups and downs. So let's enjoy this up right now. I think long term, his trajectory is so high. But I'm just enjoying, what I'm really enjoying about his game is his long legs just like coming around a player and just stealing the ball. Like, he always seems to get a foot on the ball with those long legs and just gets the toe poke in there or gets his foot on the ball to win it back.
It's insane. And I've never seen it, by the way, in the history of football. Good. Like, he's the way he does it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a huge standout. I'm loving it. I think Ancelotti after the match said Fede Valverde and Rodrigo will both definitely play in the Champions League. And obviously he was not hinting either way which would start, but I think a third name that will definitely play in the Champions League final, I don't think he'll start, but he'll definitely play, is Camavinga.
No question. Yeah. So, what was it that was on your list still to hit?
So the other one, and this is something you brought up, I think you may have brought it up on last night's podcast, but obviously Mendy scores the near post goal today. He actually nearly replicates that in the first half, going near post again after a great combination with Vinny. And I thought his combos with Vinny today were some of the best like we've seen all season. It was actually working really well. And he looked, to your point, he looked healthy. And he's finally looking like he maybe has got his fitness back. He had a week off. I know he's been battling the injuries this spring. I think that really does make a big difference with Mendy. I think he needs to be at 100% feeling fully fit, like none of these niggling injuries. When he has those niggling injuries, I feel like he plays reserved and he plays within himself, and he's just much more comfortable. Obviously, yes, this is Levante, and he had the opportunity to kind of strut his stuff a little bit more than other games. But I think he is the type of guy that 100% fit. Like, I want him starting every game, and I trust him. I trust him back there. Like you brought up the point versus Salah last night. You want Mendy versus Salah? Absolutely. That's who I want playing against Salah. There's nobody better I could think of.
People say he's not good offensively, but when he just makes simple runs like he did today, it can unlock a lot of things for us offensively. He just doesn't do it a lot. Like the last few games in the Champions League, I don't think he's had a license to be honest, because he's guarding some of the best wingers in the world. And so probably because of that, in the instructions would be for him to probably stay back a little bit. But when he either A, carries the ball forward or makes those off-ball runs, it's really good for us offensively. And that's all he needs to do, because he's probably the best defensive wingback in the entire planet. If he can just do those simple things offensively, it's going to change the complexion of our offense. It's going to help Vinicius a lot. So many times Vinicius just doesn't have space to work with because he doesn't have a wingback making those overlaps and underlap runs to drag defenders away from him. What I like about this goal is that if you rewind the sequence I promise you, I only really dissected the first goal. After the second goal, it was clear that I'm not going to really dissect any of this. But the first goal I paid really close attention to. It starts with Benzema really, really deep. And there's a moment where Mendy recognizes that Benzema is behind him and there's no center forward for Modric to hit a pass into. And he sprints and he sprints past 1, 2, 3 Levante players off the ball. He's gone and they can't catch him. I think maybe he got possibly a little bit lucky because he missed the window to pass it to Rodrigo initially. But then he keeps the ball at his feet and slings it at the near post. By the way, what a terrible goalkeeping performance as well from Cardenas. I mean, just on like every goal, he was just bad. But he almost, as you said, he almost scored another goal quickly after. And it reminded me of like World Cup 98. I don't know if you may have been too young for that, but Lilian Thuram, he's like never scored a goal in his life. And then all of a sudden against Croatia in the knockout stage, he pops up for 2 goals. And Mendy nearly did that all of a sudden in this one. But I think this is a good sign that this was also a dominant Mendy performance. This was really huge. This was important for me to see.
Yeah, agreed. I think this will put him in good stead. Get that match rhythm, like get going before the final. Couple other points, and this is just like again from the match, but can feed into bigger picture stuff. Fede Valverde had 5 shots in this game, and I mentioned at the start of the pod that he hit the crossbar either at least twice, maybe 3 times. I think of that one bullet of a shot that was a half volley from outside the box. And if you go back to his game against Atletico Madrid this weekend, he came in for like 20 minutes at the end and he took 3 shots. And I remember like thinking to myself, wow, I mean, Fede's come on and he's just really he's having a go at goal. He's on a mission here. I don't know if this has been an instruction from Carlo. Carlo actually was asked about it and talked about it a little bit after the game, but it is a weapon. Like it is a skill set that he has that he should continue to use. And there was one of the Champions League games, I think he took a free kick from like 30 or 40 yards out and just hit a bomb that nearly went in. I think it was against Chelsea. And this is something he's capable of. And I like that he's adding this to his portfolio. Like if this can be something that he utilizes more often and we see his shot volume go up, like he's taking 3-4 shots per game, that'll be huge.
I love it. He's hitting them with so much venom and dip and accuracy. Like none of these have been wayward. And I don't know if obviously Ancelotti has given him a license to shoot, but I don't know if it's him specifically. I think he's given a license to shoot for everyone outside the box. That's been a theme all season. If you look at our shot maps outside the box, they're crazy, like from game to game. And this is a good sign because I think when Ronaldo left initially, our problem like initially, and really actually lingered probably till 2019 at least, maybe even beyond that, we didn't have shot generation. We didn't have anyone who was shooting apart from Benzema and Asensio every now and then, and Bale just never was playing. So that it was a huge problem, and that's not really a problem now. And those Fede hits are just stingers. I love it. I love that he does that, because people sometimes don't understand the importance of shot generation. It's really important to just have a million shots sometimes, because that's what creates chaos. It causes rebounds. Fede came close. I mean, he hit the post. It causes a lot of problems for the defense, because you can't really react to where the ball is going to bounce, and it throws the whole system out of whack. So I like it a lot. And Fede had three shots outside the box today, and then you had some from Camavinga, Modric, Benzema had a stinger in the first minute. He had another one outside the box. You had a really long distance one from Mariano late on. It's just been a theme for Real Madrid this season, and I really like this wrinkle. This was definitely one of the things I wanted to bring up as well, and I thought it was just an important thing to have, and I'm totally okay with these long distance stingers that Ancelotti is encouraging the team to take. Also, all the shots today, by the way, they weren't forced. We had space to shoot them. They were good shots, so I was totally okay with it. In terms of like Fede himself, do you want to touch on his performance at all, or we kind of talked about the midfield in general, but
yeah, I mean, what did you make of it? I thought he was good, and I loved the shots. I didn't think it was like lights out, but given the conditions of the game, like I thought it was a walk in the park for him and everyone else. So the players I thought were maybe like lights out were Modric. Vini obviously gets a hat trick. Vallejo was spectacular. He was the guy I was referencing in the beginning, and I'm sure we'll talk
yeah.
about him more. And yeah, I mean, Camavinga was obviously good. Karim Benzema had 5 key passes. Like everybody had a role to play, but I didn't think there were like that many lights out performances. What did you think?
Yeah, just that I think Fede was one of the more quiet ones. And again, like he had 4 shots, and he had like standout moments like those 4 shots. He also had that really heads up alert pass to Benzema in the box after we won it from a pressing sequence early in the first half. But he was one of the more quiet ones, like one of the less influential ones, so to say. It's like compared to like Camavinga, let's say. He wasn't as a focal point, but he was important. And again, this was a walk in the park. It kind of reminded me of, you ever have those games growing up where you're used to playing at a high level, and then all of a sudden it's like maybe a cup game and you have to play against a 3rd division team, and it's so easy. It's just like a different sport. I felt like that's what we were going through tonight. It was just a different sport for us. We were playing with so much ease tonight. Everything we wanted to do. Like how many times, like on the Vinicius goal, the one that happened where Benzema went around the keeper, how many times do you think Benzema could have danced around the ball without actually being tackled? I feel like he could have just done that for like 10 more minutes and he would have still gone around the keeper. It was that easy. And as a side note, that goal was actually incredible. It was such a beautiful goal. It was like, if that same exact goal, the Modric splitting through ball, Benzema dancing around the keeper and sending it to Vinicius for an open netter, if that same goal was in like the Champions League final, it would have been like one of the greatest goals in our club's history. But it was just so casual in such a meaningless game that it won't get many accolades. You want to talk about Vallejo now?
Yeah, let's do it. You mean Beckenbauer, right?
Franz Beckenbauer, the legend. He's back. He's walking among us.